So while I was in school there, I had gone to, like, at that time it was really popular to go to country concerts. Like, I guess people still go now.
Oh, yeah.
But at the time, everyone went to every country concert, not just Zac Brown. Because now people go to Zac Brown.
Yeah.
But like Rascal Flatts, Jason Aldean, like all those guys, everyone went to every single concert at that age. They were so fun. They really were.
Oh, they are.
They were a blast.
I used to work for a country station.
You told me about that. Yeah, I remember that. But I remember packing in like sardines, like we always did, in my buddy's, I think it was, pickup truck at the time. And so it was like me and like a few girls and like my other guy friend, like we're all just crunched in the back seat. And we had like one of our mom's plastic picnic tables, or not picnic tables, but like the folding tables that everyone breaks through. Beer pong table. Yeah. In the back. And I remember like subconsciously seeing out of the corner of my eye, just like sliding around and hitting all over the place and just being annoying back there on the way there. And I remember getting out and there's lines of trucks. Now I've been to concerts before. Like I was aware of all this.
Country concerts.
But for whatever reason, but for whatever reason, that day these things were really sticking out to me. So like I was super aware of my surroundings for whatever reason. And so I noticed just rows of pickup trucks. Every pickup truck had a tailgate table behind it. And I remember like watching that thing bang around in the back seat or the truck bed. And I remember like I'm pretty sure I was drunk at the time, but like I remember just looking at this tailgate and I just invented the product like right there on the spot. And I invented I called it the Apex the company was called Apex Tailgates when I initially started opening the company or made the company. But at the time I had drawn that night on a napkin, a rough sketch of what it would be. And essentially it was a rectangular object that when you opened your tailgate, it would fasten to that inside surface, okay? And then you have those two wires that hold the tailgate flat, level. So basically, you couldn't just unfold it because it would hit those wires. So my components slid out and unfold into an 8-foot long surface. Most beer pong tables are only 6 foot. Everyone's backing up to shoot.
Yeah.
So I made mine 8 foot. And what was cool about it is when it folded back, slid in, and you closed the tailgate, it was attached to the tailgate. So it was just like this on the inside of the bed.
So it wasn't moving. You
couldn't see it from the outside of the truck unless you peeked in. It was bolted, and you couldn't steal it either because the only way to detach it is you'd have to slide it vertically, hold it up there, and then unscrew the whole thing, which would have been really difficult to do. So you couldn't steal it. It was built to be weatherproof. And it took up 0 truck bed space because, technically 1.5 inches. That's it.
Yeah, that's really
so,
bad.
I mean, it really took up that. There's nothing to it. So I invented that product, and but I had that drawing on my dresser for like months, and I just did nothing with it. And then one day, for whatever reason, I looked at it. Somebody said, like, do something with that. So I was at UB at the time for engineering school. I started reaching out to companies looking for materials and stuff like that. I was actually getting up in the middle of the night to communicate with people in China because they're different time zones.
Yeah.
So I'd be up in the middle of the night, like I set an alarm, get up on WhatsApp, talking to these suppliers. And I'm like trying to get samples for materials. I'm testing these samples. And I finally got this material called PVC foam board.
Okay.
Basically, it's a sheeting that's really high density on the top shell and the bottom shell, and it's got like a foam core in it. It's still rigid, but not nearly as rigid as the outside. So, and it's lightweight. So I started getting all these samples, and then I decided on everything I was going to order. So I spent like thousands of dollars, and I was ordering. I just wasn't thinking. I had no guidance. I had 0 mentor. I couldn't talk to really anyone about this because no one I knew had done anything like this. So I started ordering to get the cost down. I ordered like 3,000 drawer slides, 500 sheets of that stuff.
So much inventory.
Like 3,000 hinge systems. And I wasn't even ordering the same amount of each. I was just ordering the minimum requirement to get that cheap. Yeah, so like it really wasn't very strategic at all, looking back at all. I just thought like, oh, I'm getting the best price, that's gonna be best for me. When in reality, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
I should have started with maybe enough material to make like 50 of these tables to test out if it would work. But instead, I was able to make hundreds. So then I met my mentor now. I was, through a friend, I was introduced to my mentor.
Mm-hmm.
He said, come to the shop, I want to talk to you. I met him, I told him about my idea and stuff like that. I told him I was looking for warehouse space, and he was so nice, he actually gave me the warehouse space for free for a year. So, yeah.
I know it's for a year.
Blessing, yeah, for a year.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, he didn't tell me at the time that it was going to be a year, and he actually would have he told me he would let me continue to stay there longer without paying,
mm-hmm.
but I didn't want to. I wanted to be paying,
mm-hmm.
you know, kind of thing. So I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So I spent the first like month, literally a month. This room was an inch thick of dust. There was like wires hanging from the ceiling. It was blue doors, like the ceiling tiles were all bowed and like nasty from leaks. So I did everything. I cleaned the floor, like stripped the floor down, made it beautiful. I painted every square inch of it. I made a huge logo in the corner that I designed. I replaced every ceiling tile, every light bulb. Like I just made it. I'm such a like perfectionist when it comes to like my environment. When I'm working, I need to like be happy with the surroundings. So I did all of that, and then my materials started coming in. Like I'm like, it's go time. I started getting trucking companies saying like, hey, I have a delivery for Apex tailgates. I was like, oh shit, like, this is cool. And then they bring a skid out, and it had my logo on it, and I was like, wow, like this is crazy. I had like hundreds of boxes with my logo all over it. I mean, these are my components. So like, this is cool as shit. So I would bring it inside, and I was just killing myself. I was working well over 100 hours a week, like 120, 125. I almost fell asleep driving home every single night. I remember that, like blasting music at like 4 a.m. just to get myself awake enough to get home. I remember falling asleep a couple times. There were some points where like I would fall asleep on my workbenches. One night, which is crazy to think about, I actually fell asleep using my table saw.
Yeah, it's very crazy to think about. Very dangerous. Yeah.
It's a loud, powerful machine. I'm doing hundreds of cuts, and I dozed off. And thankfully, I went crooked, and it kicked the piece back in my stomach. Rather than slicing my hand off, it threw it back in my stomach and woke me up. Thankfully, now I have the financial funds to have a saw that has electronic technology to, if it even senses my skin being near it, the blade drops down.
Really?
Yeah, that black saw I have in there, okay. Like you physically can't cut yourself on it. It's amazing. But anyways, so I started doing all that. And I was just digging myself. I was getting ripped off by these Asian importers as well, because they could tell I was just a young kid.
Yeah.
But this is also somewhat true because I experienced this with my wood from Costa Rica. But I like a boat would get stuck in a port,
mm-hmm.
and because my stuff is on that boat, I had to split the cost with every other customer on, like every other customer that has stuff in that boat. That delayed time, we all had to pay for it. Or like if they had to inspect it for drugs, I had to pay for it. Yeah. And then if it got to New York City, they wanted to inspect it again, I had to pay for it. So I was just getting fees left and right. And all of a sudden, like what I thought was gonna cost maybe $5,000 was like $12,000. And at the time too, I had all my lawyer fees for my patent. When I first started doing this, I was told that the patent would cost me like a few grand.
Mm-hmm.
And that would cost me like $11,000-$12,000 at the end. So anyway, so I'm in school, I'm sorry, let me retract real quick. So I'm in school prior to me getting the warehouse and stuff. And right before I dropped out, I went to a job fair.
Mm-hmm.
So I already have the patent rolling. I already have materials and samples and stuff, but I don't have the warehouse yet.
Yeah.
So I go to this job fair. I get there late because I had printer issues with my resume. On the resume, it showed that I was patent pending on 3 different products. So I invented multiple versions of that tailgate table. It wasn't just the beer pong table. I invented a mobile workstation for construction workers. So this one would be metal, sort of unfold. You could put your miter saw on it. At the edge of it was a ruler, so you could put a 2x4 up to it, mark it, cut it. The extension wings were detachable and replaceable with different components depending on what kind of work you do. So if you're an electrician, it might have a certain extension wing on there that has attachments for whatever you might do. If you're a carpenter, it might have a router table on it, et cetera, et cetera.
You still have those, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The patents?
Yeah.
Yeah, for 20 years.
Wow.
From the day that they actually were finalized. So I probably have, because the patent actually, because I was patent pending for like a year and a half. And
I
then
know
it
it
was
takes a while.
Yeah,
Process.
so I probably have like almost 19 years left
Oh,
on
so
my patent, yeah. Yeah, so by the time it was all finalized, like I physically just got my actual patent with a plaque and everything in the mail this past year.
wow.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah.
To be 3 years into another business.
Into another business.
Into another business.
And got my patent
And
for my
patent
first
just
one.
now.
Yeah. And anyway, so I went to that job fair, had the resumes, walked in, lines were just like ridiculous. At every little station, there was like 50 to 100 kids holding their little resume, like getting ready to talk to these people. I was like, shit, like I'm so late. This thing ends in like 30 minutes. I'm like I'm getting anxious. I'm looking at the clock. I'm like, I'm not gonna be able to talk to anybody. This is a waste of time. I'm dressed all nice. And I walk over this one table, and like I said, it has a huge line to it. But there's car components on the table. I'm like, I could talk about those.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know what those are.
Yeah.
So I see someone walking back with them. The company was called Mahle, M-A-H-L-E. See him walking back to the table. And I'm like, I'm gonna just walk right up to him. Like, screw this line. I literally just walked around the line, walked right up to him, shook his hand, introduced myself, started talking about my patent, or my resume, and then he noticed the patent, so we started talking about the patent. And he was asking me about it. I was pulling up pictures on my phone. He was like really impressed. So all of a sudden he's like, hey John, come here. And John's with like, I don't even know if his name was John, but John was with
John Doe.
Yeah, John Doe was with another student. He got pulled away. So John and then the other guy were talking. And then all of a sudden they're like, Jimmy, come here real quick. All of a sudden that huge line, every single Mahle worker was talking to me. I had just cut the line. So I probably looked like the biggest asshole in the world. These kids were like, screw this.
That's initiative, though.
But I did it, and they're like, I want to interview you tomorrow. So I was like, okay, sweet. So this was on Thursday, interviewed Friday morning. Interview went really well.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of the guys that was there, and then like another guy that was higher up. The guy that was higher up is like, I want you to actually meet the president of the company. He's in Buffalo right now. This is a worldwide company. They build high-end, it's kind of weird. They build like high-end race car components. But then they also build air conditioning systems for everyday cars, like all the ducts and canals and stuff like that.
Huh.
So basically, they get the schematics of the car from the car manufacturer, and they design like a functional system, like all the tubes and ductwork, that works efficiently with the car build. So that's what they do. So I went to the actual headquarters in. I don't know if it's like it's not the worldwide headquarters, but whatever it is in New York State.
Mm-hmm.
It was like out past Lockport. And I went in there, I think the interview went pretty well for the first, majority of it. They were talking about the patent again, wanting to know all about it. And the one guy started talking to me about like business. So you could tell that I wasn't an engineer.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, so what do you plan on doing with these? He's like, I could tell you're like really passionate about it. But like, he's like, I could tell that you're not speaking like an engineer would about this stuff. Like you see more than,
Almost
the engineer. Like he's like, I see something. He said, look, just come here real quick. So he took me in the hallway and we walked up to this like wall of plaques. And there was all these workers in the company. And underneath it would show like what patent that worker was able to produce for the company. But he's like, this is all they have to show for it because the company owns the patent. So the company might be making millions of dollars off that product that guy made, but all he has is this goddamn plaque. So he looked at me and he's like, all right, let's go back into the room. And I'm like, I have this weird feeling in my stomach. It's almost like I'm interviewing to get this job, but he's saying, run away.
Yeah.
Basically. So I got back in the room and the rest of the conversation was basically like, run with it, take that, run. And I left.
That's a strange.
Weird, right?
I
got in my truck and I was like, how did that even go? Like, how did that go well? Like, did they let me, And I went to UB the next morning, dropped out. Walked in, first thing in the morning, dropped out. And that's when, what's funny though, is I was still at UB every single day for months in Cape and third floor library, doing that research, doing that groundwork for Apex. After I dropped out, I was still in that library every day. So the dedication didn't fall off. It just redirected. So fast forward again, back to where we were, I started producing the product. And I was seeing, I learned a valuable lesson. Like, say I had made prototypes before but they were out of wood and stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't make a prototype out of the actual material yet until I had it, which is so stupid. But, I did like the math on it and stuff like that. Like I thought that it would have been perfect, but there's things that I didn't consider. And once I started making physical prototypes, I had them on my truck. I started seeing like, oh shit, I gotta change this.
Mm-hmm.
The way when the extension wing went down, if you were to push on it, it had play, like it wanted to bounce.
Okay.
So the component that slid out underneath it to support it, it needed to be way more rigid. It couldn't flex with it. It had to just prevent it from moving. Just like if this had table leaves on it, you don't want this end to be bouncing up and down as I'm sitting at it. Just the same way if we're playing beer pong or have a crock pot on the end of it or whatever it may be, it can't bounce. So I was racking my brain trying to figure out like, how do I fix this? Like shit. And then I fixed it, but it was only to a certain extent. And I started rolling more with it, started producing more. And it's funny because I was even faking it until you make it kind of thing then. I just never really made it with that business yet. I plan on doing something with it still.
I would say, so had 20 years, you may as well.
Yeah, I want to either I do.
Some of the parts,
yeah, but I want to either sell or license the patent, I think.
Okay.
Because even though I'm like, it's a really cool business. I like everything about it, especially because I created it. Like it's like literally an invention that my mind made. But I'm not passionate about it. Like I'm passionate about the woodworking.
Yeah.
Like I love it. I eat, sleep, and breathe it. So I want to either like hand it off and have like another company produce it and then just get royalties on it, or just sell it outright. But anyways, I was going heavy into credit card debt at the time, and I just was not producing the optimal product that I wanted. And so I started doing research, like how do I produce this in the best way possible? So I started talking to companies that did injection moldings, the same way Yeti coolers are made. So they make a giant metal mold, pour molds in plastic in there, and hardens to the shape, whatever. It was going to cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars to have things injection molded. So I'm like, that's not going to work. So credit card debt's building up. I just got my first apartment, and it wasn't great. It was in Amherst, but it wasn't the best area, and it just looked like shit in there. Like I said, I need my surroundings. I need to like my surroundings.
Everything's meticulous too.
Yeah,
I know that.
Yeah, like if you go, you've seen how everything in my apartment is in its spot. Like
very meticulous.
I wouldn't say I have OCD, but like to an extent, I probably do.
It's like
I probably do. Yeah. So where was I going?
Well, this is the origin story.
Yeah, I know, but I'm trying to think. Oh, okay, yeah. So I painted the apartment, and I had just saw that week on Instagram or Facebook that someone put pallet wood. And this is where it gets interesting.
Yeah.
So I saw that someone put pallet wood on a wall. And I'm like, that looks pretty cool. Like at the time, rustic was in.
Yep.
barn doors, rustic.
It was in the time of Fixer Upper.
It was in.
Chip and Joanna Gaines.
Yes.
This show was very, very big.
So I screenshot the photo, and you see, like, pallets all over the place on the side of the road without even realizing it. But I started thinking, I'm like, on my way home to and from work, I see pallets all over the place. So I took my reciprocating saw and I cut behind the nails and got a bunch of planks. Went home, nailed them up on the walls. I was like, that looks pretty good. Looking back, it looked like shit, in my opinion. Now, at least. But at the time, I thought it was really good. So I did that on several walls throughout the house. And this was at the same time where I was coming home at like 4 a.m, exhausted. So I'd come home at like 3, 4 a.m, and I'd be painting for like an hour, hour and a half, and then falling asleep. And the one night, I was on my stairs. I'll never forget this. My favorite accent wall I had done in that apartment was above the stairway. Mm-hmm. So I'm painting the wall gray, and I kept looking at it because it was just captivating. It was cool looking. And I was like, people would pay pretty good money for that, I think. So at 4 a.m, walked up to my room, grabbed my laptop, went on Facebook Marketplace, made an ad, went to bed. Woke up the next morning, I had like 32 messages. So like I said, I'm in credit card debt at this point. Mm-hmm. And like, this was like the lowest I ever been financially. Like I hadn't had cars getting flipped. I just wasn't killing it. I had my truck lease at the time.
It was all in. So it's all in.
Yeah. So I put everything into Apex. I thought it was gonna just like rock out, but I did that. I don't know if you remember that barstool video I made for it too. I backflipped. I shotgunned a beer. I planned this out strategically. So I wasn't even drunk. Everyone thought I was drunk. I took my truck to the Bills game, opened the tailgate up, had people playing beer pong on it. And I took a competitor's beer pong table, put it behind it, and I had someone video me shotgunning the beer. I stood up on the top of the tailgate. I backflipped over my product and landed and smashed through the competitors. And I landed on my feet, actually. So I backflipped, landed, crashed through the table, turned around, and walked away. Like it was, nothing. Like I smashed the competition, basically. And it went viral. It went on Barstool. It had like 20 million views. It went on Fox News. It was all over the place. Yeah.
Was this before the trend of smashing tables?
It was during it. It was actually, what's funny is I got kicked out of the Bills stadium because that week prior, funny you say that, they had banned table smashing. So they put something in the paper that if you were caught smashing through a table, you'd be kicked out. So they actually kicked me out. But thankfully, shout out to Steve Schultz. His dad got me right back in. So so he got me right back in, and it blew up. So people were asking to buy them at that point, but I wasn't confident enough with my product. I really wasn't. So which is
crazy with all that material you bought. Everything you had.
Thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in a warehouse space. Everything with my logo on it. Like, I was doing custom ones, too, because I was vinyl wrapping every single one I made, just like a car. Mm-hmm. So I had yellow ones, black ones, Bills-themed ones. Like, they were sick. They looked really nice. But you get an email 2 months later that there was issues with it. Yeah. So, anyways, made that ad on Facebook for the accent walls, woke up at 32 messages, and booked 3 jobs that week. Made over $3,000 cash that first week. And what's crazy is my material cost. Anyone that wants to do this business, they should. Any young kid, it's amazing. You drive around. This is what the business consisted of. This was the business model. I drove around. I would either call or email warehouses or walk right in and say, hey, I noticed you have a ton of pallets. They'd be like, yeah, go grab some. So I'd fill up my truck bed. I'd ratchet strap like 20, 30 of them. I'd go to my shop, cut them all down, and then I'd throw them up on people's walls. I wouldn't even stain them and nothing. So
you weren't staining them?
I did for a few customers, but they liked that raw wood look.
That's insanity. That's insanity.
And I was charging $15 a square foot. So 12-inch by 12 inch, $15. $15. So a 10 by 10 wall was $1,500. $1,500, and I'd have it done in like 2 hours. So I'd come in with my free wood. I had a box of $10 nails that last me multiple jobs. I had an air compressor, a $100 nail gun. Okay, these people should do this, by the way, because it was profitable. I'd probably be making more money now if I stuck with it. Yeah. But my brain's too creative. Like, I need to be doing more. But business wise, I'm making so much more money, profit wise at least. Yeah. So I'd come, nail it all up, get the check or cash, leave on to the next. I would be able to do multiple in a day. So I was just like, awesome. My credit cards were paid off, and I was making really good money. I went and bought my dream car.
I know.
The Audi RS7.
We'll pause right there.
Oh.
The Audi RS7.
Yeah.
Because